friends, and welcome to this extra bonus episode of The Rabbit Hole. I have seen so many things about the solar eclipse that I decided that you guys need to know about it. So let's dive in. This might not be a full length episode. I don't actually know how long it's going to be. I have all my notes in front of me, and I just thought that there's a lot that you need to know that I need to share with you, as my responsibility is to you. So, as most of you are aware, on April 8th, there will be a total solar eclipse. If you don't know, a total solar eclipse is when the sun, the moon, and the earth, they line up fully. And so the moon will pass in front of the sun and cast a shadow on the earth. So the path of this full shadow is right through the center of the US, which doesn't happen very often. So it'll start like kind of down like mid-Texas, and then it'll travel northeast through the country, and it hits big cities like Waco, Fort Worth, Dallas, Little Rock, Indianapolis, Dayton, Cleveland, Toledo, Buffalo, Rochester, and Burlington. Obviously, there will be a whole lot of big cities, small towns. Everybody's gearing up for lots of tourism. People want to come and witness this total eclipse. But there are a lot of weird things about this eclipse. So, when there is a new moon, there are increased tidal stresses, right? That just happens every time there's a new moon. Well, officially, solar eclipses do not add to that stress and do not cause earthquakes or natural disasters. But if you look into earthquakes and other natural disasters, they do happen more frequently and more aggressive during an eclipse. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's what happens, right? Why do we need to be concerned about this? Well, natural disasters, obviously, but the New Madrid fault is one of our biggest concerns during this. This eclipse is passing right over the New Madrid seismic zone, which is right in the middle of the country. It includes like the northeastern part of Arkansas, the top northwest corner of Mississippi, the entire western border of Tennessee and Kentucky, and the southeastern part of Missouri, and it's running along the Mississippi River right through there. It covers actually like the largest portion is northeast Arkansas. This is one of the least understood, most seismically active regions in the US. And the reason it's the most the least understood is because there's no tectonic plate there. The tectonic plate is in California, or like the edge of the tectonic plate is in California, which is where we see earthquakes all the time. About 750 million years ago, there was a rift in the continent, but it didn't split the continent completely in half. And this is where the Mississippi River flows through, right? And it goes all the way up to Canada, comes all the way back down. We all know, and it's a huge river. Well, earthquakes along this rift, or this New Madrid fault, could be incredibly dangerous because it could finish the job. It could finish cutting this continent in half, which is terrifying, right? The shifts are caused by intraplate earthquakes, which occur in the middle of a tectonic plate instead of like the edge, like we see in California. So there is not one fault line here. It's like a network of faults throughout the region, which is why they say we haven't seen a whole lot of earthquakes, because not like one fault line and like, two regions kind of moving against that fault. It's a bunch of different fault lines, but we have seen some really major earthquakes in this region before. So in 1811, 1812, there were a series of earthquakes ranging from 7.0 to 7.5 magnitude that hit the region. And these were felt over about 1 million square miles. And this is further than any other earthquake that we know of in North America. So in California, it reaches like a decent distance, but not this big of a distance. And the people that lived through this, they talked about the rivers running backward, like the Mississippi River running backwards, and the ground waves that you could see. And these shocks were felt for 5 years. The aftershocks of this earthquake, or these couple earthquakes, they were felt for 5 years. There was like 4 earthquakes in the series. that were huge earthquakes, 7.0 to 7.5 magnitude. These were huge earthquakes. And with earthquakes like this, we can expect to see like new lakes and like rivers changing courses. Obviously, there's drastic things that can happen to the landscape because the whole earth is moving. The region has seen a few other earthquakes as well, not just these ones. So in 1843, they had a magnitude 6.0 earthquake, and in 1895, they had a 6.6 magnitude earthquake. But there have also been earthquakes in the Midwest that are not in this seismic zone. In 1968, Dale, Illinois experienced a 5.4 magnitude earthquake, and this earthquake was felt in 23 different states. Now, this place, so Dale, Illinois, it's not in this seismic region, but it's not too far outside of it either. So could it also be a part of this region and we just don't know it? Absolutely. It's not that far out of the realm. But then it begs the question, like, how big is this New Madrid seismic region if Dale, Illinois is part of it? And later in just a minute, we're going to get into Oklahoma as well. So I've got other questions about the size of this seismic region. However, so people in this area, they're not prepared for earthquakes. Like, yes, it's happened, but it's not frequent. Like in California, people know that earthquakes are going to happen, so they get prepared. This region is prepared for tornadoes because they're in Tornado Alley. They're going to get tornadoes. But also, a quake big enough could literally split the country down the middle, like I said. So, like, not only do we have to worry about, like, the infrastructure damage, the people in the area could lose power. I mean, lots of people would die. Communication would be gone. We wouldn't have supplies such as food, water, emergency services, emergency supplies. The Mississippi River would be greatly affected. So the Mississippi River helps move 500 million tons of freight every year. But also, like, truckers wouldn't be able to cross the country because everyone would be stuck on either one side or the other. There would be no. We're not the United States anymore. Now we're the divided states. Although some would claim that we're already the divided states, but that's a conspiracy for another day. Think it's unlikely, right? Like, everyone thinks that this is unlikely. We're not going to see this, but Oklahoma has been experiencing earthquakes for a long time. So they have had swarms of earthquakes, over 500 of them that are classified in the 3.0 or greater magnitude. So they're not just having like little earthquakes, they're having decent size. Just 2 months ago, they had a 5.1 magnitude earthquake hit Oklahoma City. So everything that's going on in this region, we need to really watch. And because unofficially, solar eclipses do cause natural disasters or increase natural disasters, this is a concern for a lot of people. Lastly, the total eclipse that happened in 2017 also passed over this region. So that total eclipse started the Pacific Northwest and passed down through like the southeast side of the country. It's really strange for us to have had two total eclipses this close together. But these two eclipses, if you show their paths on a map, they both cross over, and right at the center of that cross, that X, is this region. So that's a little concerning. And oddly enough, X is the 24th letter in the alphabet, and it is 2024. I'm not sure if that symbolism means anything, but I just thought I'd share it with you guys because I thought it was interesting. Outside of earthquakes, and I'm sure tornadoes, because especially because it's Tornado Alley, it's tornado season, they are warning that people may lose power. So already people in the area have been experiencing electrical issues. My parents live very, very close to where the eclipse is going to pass by, and also very close to this seismic region. Not that that really matters. This is completely separate from that. But they're experiencing all these kind of electrical issues, like their computers and their phones, their TVs, all these things aren't working. And with the eclipse could come solar flares. Now, solar flares are large eruptions of electromagnetic radiation from the sun. And solar flares have been known to cause radio blackouts, but a strong enough flare could cause total loss of power. We don't know how strong a really strong solar flare could be, because we've seen it affect our electronics before. We just haven't seen one of such a great magnitude that it affects everything. But another concern that I've thought of that I'm not sure is widely out there, maybe it is, but because of this eclipse, somebody, I don't know who, could set off an EMP, which they could disguise as a solar flare. And like, we really wouldn't know the difference because it would act the exact same. They'd be like, oh, it was just a solar flare. We wouldn't know because we're like, cool, whether it was an EMP or solar flare, either way, now we have lost all of our power.
Did you know that over 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills? So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. We know that gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar, they get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with their first purchase. To claim your free D3 vitamins, visit try.easymelts.com/spring24. That's melts.com/spring24. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and say hello to the easy way. Menopausal and perimenopausal women, listen up. It's time to take control of your health and comfort, and Winona is here to help. Winona is a telemedicine company for menopause care who believes that your symptoms are real, important, and deserve to be taken seriously. And for many women, this starts with hormone replacement therapy. Winona's HRT is made with plant-based, bioidentical hormones rather than synthetic ones, so it better aligns with your body to offer relief from hot flashes, weight gain, and other uncomfortable symptoms. 80% of women who use Winona find relief within just 90 days. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today. Visit buywinona.com today to start your free visit. With free shipping and the ability to pause or cancel at any time, your path to wellness has zero obligations. Use code SPRING24 at buywinona.com for 25% off your first treatment plan. That's BYWINONA.com for 25% off. Winona. Menopause care made easy.
So this is feeling a lot like Leave the World Behind. So I'm sure many of you have seen the biblical references. It's all over social media. Everywhere you look, people are talking about these biblical references. There were also a lot of biblical references for the 2017 solar eclipse. This eclipse passes through 7 towns named Nineveh in the US. There is one also in Canada, so sometimes you might see that it's passing through 8 towns. One of them is in Canada. So from what I understand, and I have never really read the Bible, so I'm trying to do my best with the references here, so please forgive me. In the Bible, the prophet Jonah warned about the wrath of God in the city of Nineveh. This is also, like, this solar eclipse is also taking place under the constellation Cetus, which means the whale, and the prophet Jonah was swallowed by a whale before being spit out onto the shore to go preach in Nineveh. So that's odd. And even further, in Matthew 16:4, it says, "A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." So if you're putting all these pieces together, maybe this is a sign from God. I mean, God created astrological events in the sky to mark sacred times. This is a huge astrological event. This could be a huge sign from God. I'm not really sure, but if that is something that you believe in, you better make right with the Lord before April 8th, because, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And nothing could happen. But I just thought I'd get on here and tell you guys all the things, because what if something does happen? Something I found odd is that NASA is firing 3 rockets into the eclipse. Not like directly at the eclipse, right? Like just like during the eclipse. So they're going to fire one 45 minutes before, one during, and one 45 minutes after the total eclipse. They're trying to measure the activity in the atmosphere and how the sun's disappearance affected the ionosphere. The name of this project is Serpent Deity, which, I don't know. That just feels strange. I thought I'd include the name of it because it just seems odd. I don't know if there's any connection there, but it's odd that they are trying to measure the this disturbances in the ionosphere when they've said specifically that, I mean, solar eclipses don't affect natural disasters, and we're not sure if any solar flares will come from it. And solar flares could also come at any time. So it's not just during an eclipse like this that a solar flare could come. They could be active. I mean, the sun's a very active star, so it could be active at any point. Just a funny side note, when I was in the Navy and our stuff wouldn't work, we would just always tell the operators, like, oh, it was a solar flare that affected the equipment, because sometimes, like, we don't know what caused the equipment to go weird, but we had to come up with some explanation because people like an answer. So we would always tell them it was solar flares. I don't know if there was that much activity in the sky, but it was always funny. Anyway, another weird thing. CERN is firing up April 8th. Yep, that's weird. So I don't know what they're trying to test on April 8th, but with all the weird things that happen at CERN, with them finding the God particle or discovering the God particle, and all the theories that go around that maybe they caused the Mandela effect, maybe they're opening portals to demons, like all these different things. I don't know. It just feels like really odd timing. So if you don't know about CERN, I did an episode about them, about all the weird things that go on there. So definitely go and listen to that episode. Outside of them just being odd, I mean, this is actually exactly going along with that. They're doing these rituals in front of their statue Shiva. So they were gifted a statue from India that represents universal cycle of life and death, Shiva. And they have been doing, like, maybe they're praying, maybe they're doing different ritual things. I don't know what they're doing, but it's been caught on tape and it's not something you normally see. Definitely odd. There's a lot of odd things going on with NASA and CERN. But again, I don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to give you the information. But here's some things we got to pay attention to. Like, close attention. So, turn your ears on if you haven't already. We have cities declaring states of emergency already. The eclipse isn't for another several days, and they are declaring states of emergency. They are claiming that they need the help of the National Guard because the amount of people that will be coming into their towns, that they're not really prepared for this much traffic. And so they need the National Guard to come in and help them with, like, crowd control, basically. But typically, when big events happen, towns just, like, hire help to maintain crowds. Especially, like, we've known that this eclipse is coming for a long time. They could be reaching out to surrounding towns where the eclipse isn't passing directly through and asking them to come, like, to send people, right? That's not what they're doing. Typically, when something like this, like, you would embrace it. Like, why are they not embracing it? Using it as a way to, like, boost their local economy. They say they just don't have the resources for all these people. And I understand, like, not having enough beds, like hotel rooms, different things. But, like, why not bring in food trucks, bring in vendors, almost like a festival, right? Like, bring in extra food. They're definitely concerned that, like, the grocery stores are going to run out of food and water. Bring in more. Like, if you're that concerned about it, just order a surplus. Some cities are putting out a disaster declaration, and they're trying to cover their tracks by saying that they must declare, like, a state of emergency or a disaster declaration in order to get help. And that may be true. I don't know the ins and outs of getting the National Guard's help. Maybe you do need to declare a state of emergency or a disaster declaration in order to do that. Seems really drastic, but okay. But when they have these, like, big parades, like the Super Bowl parade, for example, or just like the Super Bowl, or, I mean, Salt Lake City hosted the Olympics one time, right? Taylor Swift concerts bring in a lot of tourism. They don't declare states of emergencies for those things. They just bring in more people to help. This seems a little aggressive, like a, kind of like a over exaggeration, but they're doing it. But here's my big question. Why are they asking the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear unit to come with the National Guard when they come? They're housing in Oklahoma, for example, they're housing 22 members, like elite members, the top members of this chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear unit with the National Guard. They want to make sure that they're there. Like, why do you guys need those people? Like, what are you expecting is going to happen? I mean, you don't need these people for tourist control, for crowd control. It's one thing to ask the National Guard for help. That makes sense. You could probably justify that. But to bring in the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear unit, there's something else happening. This is not for crowd control. So the question that I'm going to ask is, what do they know? What do all these towns and cities know that we don't know? Do they think that a big solar eclipse obviously, a solar flare is coming? Do they think that we're going to lose power? Do they think that something's going to happen to the new Madrid fault line? Maybe they have chemical plants there that they're worried like something might happen to those? I don't know. There's a lot of weird things going on around this solar eclipse. These towns are telling their people, their local people, they're like, make sure you have 2 weeks of food and water saved up because we might run out of food. Make sure you have enough supplies saved up. And if you don't, go buy them. So that's basically what I jumped on here to tell you guys. If you're listening to me and you're not already prepping for at least 2 weeks, I highly encourage you to do that. Go buy enough food and water for your entire family for 2 weeks. And if you're in the Midwest, in this area where this new Madrid situation might happen, I highly encourage you to have a go bag. I think that even if you're not a prepper, you're nobody, you're just like Joe Schmo off the street, you don't really believe in conspiracy theories, but you like to listen to my podcast because you're curious. I know some of you are out there. This is not like a conspiracy theory prepper type situation. You should always have a 72-hour go bag for any situation, but for your entire family. So, I mean, I live in Colorado. What if we get a blizzard or we get we do get tornadoes out here. What if a fire comes through and we have to leave really quickly, right? If you are in Tornado Alley, you have tornadoes that come through. What if you need to leave really fast? We talked about the Maui fire a couple weeks ago. What if a situation like that happens? You need to grab your backpack and go. You don't have time to pack a 72-hour bag. You have to have it already ready to go with food, with water, with first aid supplies, with some clothes, like a change of clothes. You don't even have to have 3 days worth of clothes. I would say a couple pairs of underwear and another pair, another outfit, some extra socks, just different things that you always have ready, whether you're a prepper or not, right? If you are a prepper, I'm sure you already have all these things, but it's always better to be prepared than to be caught with your pants down. So that's my 2 cents. You guys do whatever you want. I will never tell you what to do. I got on here to try to explain what is going on and what these towns and cities are doing, because that seems to be a huge red flag to me. So if you're in one of these cities or towns that is expecting a lot of people, definitely be stocking up on food. And that's why I got this episode out right now, because I wanted to get all the information, get it out. That way you have a couple of days. Maybe you can get extra food. If you're not being told these things, tell your neighbor, tell your family and your friends that are around. Take care of one another. And as always, my friends, stay skeptical, and I'll see you next time. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.